show up where your future clients already are, not by finding your way into crowded feeds, but rather leveraging other people's platforms. I'm Sylvie Garibaldi, founder and CEO of a well-established marketing training and done-for-you services company, tailored specifically for the modern legal and financial professional worldwide. While it's taken some trial and error to figure out which methods get the best results for professionals who are looking to grow their practices, fast forward to today, my team and I have nailed down and perfected a process that has helped so many of our clients consistently achieve outstanding results and create a legacy for their practices. I created the Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast to give you simple, actionable, non-salesy, and results-driven marketing to grow your legal or financial practice like so many of our clients have. If you're a lawyer, mediator, financial, or divorce professional who is looking to become highly visible and wants to create a practice that makes an impact, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 87 of the Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast. I'm your host, Sylvie Garibaldi. Here's what I know. Building an audience from zero can be very challenging, especially amidst billable hours, client crises, and the emotional complexity of law, mediation, and divorce work. Just because it makes sense doesn't mean it fits. But here's something smarter. Show up where your future clients already are, not by finding your way into crowded feeds, but rather leveraging other people's platforms. So in this episode, I'm going to be walking you through how you can step onto someone else's stage and speak directly to your ideal people without feeling salesy, pushy, or out of place. And I'll show you how to find the right hosts, those whose audiences already want to listen to what you teach. And I'll also walk you through crafting a pitch that gets accepted and not ignored. And so what we'll do is we'll script how to deliver value and not a promotion and really leave listeners wanting more. And I'm also going to add in there how to take that guest spot and turn it into content that actually keeps working by repurposing sound clips, show notes, and shareable quotes that grow your reach long after the mic goes silent. Okay, so if you've ever thought, oh, I'm too busy to build an audience, but who's really listening to me? This episode is for you because building an audience is absolutely critical to growing your practice consistently. So I'm going to help you flip the script, grab that ready-made audience, and really amplify what you do best so that those who need you can find you. Okay, let's dive in. So let me ask you a question. How many of your ideal clients are already listening to something right now? Not to you, but somewhere else. Somewhere that you could be showing up if only you knew how to get invited. So finding the right podcasts, the right webinars, or the right live shows to guest on really starts with a smart approach. No guessing, it's deliberate, and there's a strategy. And so here's the first step. You need to look for shows where you can actually add value. And so the goal isn't vanity metrics, and I really want to stress this because people always think, well, how can I find that show or that webinar that's going to go viral? That is not the intention here. It's all about getting in front of your ideal clients, not all people, but your ideal clients with content that speaks directly to their needs. And I think that's where many professionals make a mistake. They think, oh, I could present here and hopefully some of my ideal audience or referral partners are in that audience. And what I'm saying is that's not strategic. You need to find your ideal target audience. You need to spend your time strategically in front of your ideal target markets. Okay. So how do you start? Well, the best thing to do is to start with directories like Apple Podcasts or Google Play. And what you're going to do is you're going to search by terms related to your practice. So maybe it's divorce support or co-parenting plans or workplace mediation tips. And notice the shows that come up consistently, okay? And then browse the top shows as well to see what's trending. And then you're going to start to do a little bit more homework before you do your reach out. So listen to a few episodes to get the tone, the format, and a feel for the host's rhythm. And ask yourself, does this content align with my expertise? And does the host actually interview guests? And are they still active? That's going to be super important because you do not want to approach podcasts that haven't produced episodes in months. They're not active, and those are not ideal for helping you spread your message. Because pitching shows that don't fit or haven't produced an episode in a while will be a waste of effort. And here's something else I'll add. It's very clear to me because the Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast, we get pitches every single week. My inbox is filled. And I can tell you, I know which ones are not a fit because they talk about things that I never even mention in my podcast. So I know that they are not going to be a good fit for my audience. So when you are doing your research, make sure you're listening to these episodes and try to find the connection. What's the connection between what you do and the audience of this podcast? Okay. And I think there's very often a gap there that people miss. So it's really important to get that right. So once you've narrowed your list to 3 to 5 potential shows, you're going to open their websites or their episode pages, and you want to find the right person to contact. And usually the host, the producer, or the guest coordinator is going to be the right person. So don't shoot your pitch into a vague inbox. Really aim for the person who actually decides who gets on the show. And before moving on, remember, you need to be strategic here. Each show on your list should, 1, serve an audience that you actually want to reach. And number 2 is the podcast should be active and welcoming to guests. And number 3, you should have a contact that you can tailor your outreach to. Those are 3 important things you need to look for. And that's really how you go from hoping someone books me to landing the right stage with ease. Okay, I hope that's making sense. All right, so let's talk about pitching yourself as a guest without sounding like a walking billboard, because nobody wants that. So here's what actually works. Warm outreach will always win. So start by engaging with the hosts before you actually pitch. So comment on their recent episode on LinkedIn. If they're sharing it on LinkedIn, share something you've learned or send a genuine reaction. And building that little bridge before you pitch makes everything so much smoother. You can also use helpful matchmaking tools. There are platforms like podmatch.com and matchmaker.fm, and they're like dating apps for podcasters, okay? So they connect you with shows that want to hear from someone exactly like you. And so they've helped people go on dozens of shows within one campaign. But let's say you're going to go old school with email. Here's how to make it really count. And by the way, what I'm going to be explaining to you right now can also apply to live shows and webinars that you know that are out there that you want to be a guest on. So do your research, find those webinars and live shows. And then even for podcasts, you can use this system that I'm going to explain to you right now. So the first thing you want to do is you want to personalize this. You want to start your message by referencing a specific episode or a specific live show that they did. And you can say something like, I really loved how in episode 47, you unpacked co-parenting communication. This really resonated with me because of, and then you can sort of add in why it made sense to you. Then you want to lead with value. You want to say what you'll bring to their listeners that will make the connection, not what you want from them. So you can say something like, I'd love to share simple de-escalation tools in mediation, such as practical steps that people can use right away. Okay, so it's really all about personalizing it to the work that you do as an expert and tying it into what the podcast is all about And you will use the same sort of approach for live shows or webinars. Then you're going to look at offering 2 to 3 focused ideas, not very many, right? You want them to be very specific. Don't be vague here. And, maybe suggest topics like how to de escalate conflict in divorce, or what to say right after separation, or the power of wills and how they can protect your legacy. So, podcast producers really love specific topics. So, really make sure that you think this out. Then you also want to make sure that you're keeping it under 200 words, right? Be concise and clear. Aim for one short email. And your subject line, make it feel relevant and personal. So it could sound like, really loved your recent co parenting episode. Okay, something like that that really can grab their attention. And one final note here is to follow up, right? So if you don't hear back, wait a week and send a light, friendly nudge. Sometimes timing can be just off, so the follow-up is going to be key. And that's how you become the guest that they're glad to say yes to, because it's friendly, it's thoughtful, and it's valuable. Okay, now that you've landed the guest spot, let's ensure that you nail the delivery without sounding like you're pitching your firm. Instead, you want to be useful, personable, and unforgettable. So, the first thing that we know works really well is to tell short, meaningful stories or to share a clear framework with the audience. Okay, so let's say you're talking about mediation. Rather than listing credentials, you might say something like this. Last year, a couple came to me saying that they couldn't even agree on bedtime routines. What I did is I walked them through a simple win-win negotiation framework, and within 30 minutes, they had a schedule everyone could live with. And that moment showed me how these tiny shifts in mediation can make a huge difference. Okay, so what I just shared with you, that's educational storytelling. And it frames your expertise, but it's not a sales pitch. Okay, so you need to add these types of meaningful stories through all your presentations. Whether you're doing a podcast episode, whether you are speaking on a stage, or you're delivering a webinar, or you are on someone's live social media platform, whatever it is, it's important to include those types of stories. The second thing is you need to keep it conversational and not lectury. So you really need to think about how you would be chatting with a friend and you're just having an open discussion. And you wouldn't be lectury with a good friend, right? You would just share with them the tips and the things that you've learned in a way that is meaningful. And the third thing I think that's important to do is you want to really follow what I call a 5-topic pacing method for guest spots. So what I mean by this is you want to pick 5 core ideas, each around 1 to 2 minutes. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to start with your most compelling example and then navigate through others and then close on another high impact takeaway. And what this does is it keeps the listener hooked without info overload. Okay. So you want to really think about the 5 key topics, the 5 key points that you want to make in this guest spot. I hope that's making sense. The fourth thing is you really want to wrap up with a soft, clear, and relevant takeaway. Okay. So I always encourage people to offer something of value to the audience. So you could say something like, I've created a short toolkit with a 3-part script and a 1-page framework that you can apply immediately. So if this is of interest to you, I'll give you the link and feel free to take advantage of this 1-page framework. So what you're doing here is you're not selling, you're offering to help. And so then you provide the link to the podcast host and they'll include that in the show notes. Okay, so always offering something of value. So to recap, you want to, 1, lead with a real, relatable story. 2 is you want to speak conversationally like you're sitting across the table. 3, you want to structure your segment into small, digestible chunks. And 4, you want to end with a clear, helpful next step. No hard sells here, okay? And with that, you're not just a guest, you actually become someone that your audience actually wants to hear from again. By the way, if you're finding this episode valuable, I've covered related topics in past episodes that can help deepen your understanding. So please be sure to check out those episodes. I'll drop the links in the show notes so you can easily find them. All right, now that you've delivered a powerful guest segment, let's take that one appearance and make it continue to work for you long after the mic is off. So here's how you can turn your guest appearance into content that actually spreads and serves in multiple places. So I want to share with you how we could do this maybe in a workplace mediation setting. All right, so let me share with you how this could work. You could take that recording and you could write a blog post or an article. So let's say, for example, that you're using this type of story where a manager assigns a project to an employee and then the employee misunderstands the deadline, and then the manager assumes the worst, and then the employee is slacking and tensions escalate, right? So you're going to take that recording, for example, of where you were a guest and you shared this story. And then what you can do is you can turn this into several different stories. So you can say something like how one shared scheduling tool prevented a project disaster. And it's educational and shows your process and supports SEO, right? And you can turn that into a blog post. Then you can create a visual quote post. So you're going to pull a memorable line from that podcast episode, for example, and use it. So maybe you said something like, sometimes it's not about people not caring, it's about not being clear, and communication matters. So maybe you take this quote and you create a visual quote post. You turn it into a clean, branded graphic using Canva, and then you post it on Instagram or LinkedIn to really start those real conversations. Then you can make a short audiogram or a teaser video, right? So you can grab a 30 to 60-second moment and maybe you summarize what that could look like, right? And put captions in that so that it's quick, it's engaging, and it's attention grabbing. Then you can also offer a downloadable mini resource. So from your segment, you can really create some kind of mini resource or lead magnet that can be really valuable, right? And it's not deemed as promotional, but really just something that adds value to, let's say, companies that will need workplace mediation, but maybe haven't really thought about it, right? And some of the things that they should look for. Then you can also share it in newsletters or stories. So you can use that podcast clip or that quote and put it in your newsletter. And you can write a social media post saying something like, I was just on XYZ podcast sharing how one question saved a project from going sideways, right? Just as an example. And this keeps the content alive and accessible. Okay, so you really want to think about how you can do that. And I think why this matters is because it amplifies your voice without recording again, right? You can take that one recording and multi-purpose it. And it also serves different audience types when you create the different types of initiatives that I just described, because some read, some watch, and some listen, and you need to be aware of that. And then it also builds your reputation steadily, piece by piece. And that's really how you can turn a guest appearance into a content ecosystem that really creates an omnipresence for you, because it's one that continues to build trust. It's one that continues to build visibility and connection without the extra recording time. So I think by doing this, one appearance can actually yield multiple assets. That's why I really love this approach. And each one reinforces your expertise, making you more visible and helpful. And when you repurpose thoughtfully, you're not just amplifying your voice, you're steadily cultivating that trust and visibility that I just talked about, but you're also creating connection. And I think that's where the long-term value lies. So I've walked you through 3 incredibly potent opportunities to grow your practice in a smart, sustainable way. And so I think first, you really need to tap into someone else's audience. Do your research. show up on podcasts, webinars, or live streams where your ideal clients already spend time. I can't really stress how important that is. Don't show up on podcasts or webinars or live streams where you think your audience could be, but you're not really entirely sure if they are. It should be a hell yes to, yes, this is where my audience hangs out in order for this to be strategic, okay? And to really help you spend your time wisely to get the ROI that you're looking for. So it's like showing up with a welcome mat instead of building your own house when you find the right places to spread your message because you know your audience is there. Second, I think it's really important to craft a pitch that feels thoughtful, that is specific and really authentic to you and the value that you bring. And I think one that's hard to ignore because it's not a pitch at all, but really an offer of value and an offer of being of service. Okay. And third, I think this is where the real marketing magic happens. And that's how to extend one guest appearance into multiple assets, right? Blog posts, pull quote graphics, audiograms, videos, downloadable content. All of this keeps working for you long after the recording ends. So here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to really think about how you can find that one show where your ideal clients are already gathering, maybe a mediation focused podcast or a community webinar. So then you want to draft a pitch with a specific, meaningful topic idea, something that's practical, right? And that really gets the attention of the audience and of the podcast host. And then you want to sketch out one or two ways that you can repurpose the interview, maybe a blog post, snippets. You can even actually create an email and send it out to your email list. You can create a downloadable tip sheet, right? All of these things are opportunities. But I think the important point here is you need to take the first step. Even drafting the pitch will shift your momentum in a meaningful way. Like sitting down and doing that will really put you miles ahead of others who are not even approaching this. So if this episode sparked something for you, or maybe you're thinking these ideas feel really doable, they're inspiring, then I ask you to pay it forward. Maybe tell a colleague or a peer and say to them, hey, this might be exactly what you've been looking for. And please forward the episode or share it in your practice circle, bring it into your next meeting. That would be super helpful if you did that. And above all, thank you for showing up. Thank you for being curious and investing in your growth. Thanks for tuning in today. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes packed with actionable strategies to grow your practice. See you in the next episode.